All right, welcome back, everyone. Today we're diving into something pretty fascinating, the crypto market. Right at the very end of 2024, we've got this really interesting report. It's from Crypto Deep Dive, and it's dated December 30th, so really a snapshot of everything that's going on. As the year wraps up, we're talking about MicroStrategy's massive Bitcoin bet, the crazy growth of decentralized exchanges, and even a Hong Kong official suggesting something, well, let's just say pretty wild. It's definitely a dynamic landscape right now, and this report captures that perfectly.
So first things first, global crypto market cap is sitting at a mind-boggling $3.28 trillion, up a little bit for the day. But what really stands out is the trading volume.
Almost a 60% jump. Seems like everyone's making moves. And if you look closer, over 93% of that volume is from stablecoins.
Stablecoins, huh? Guess they're not so stable after all, with all that action. But speaking of big players, Bitcoin. Bitcoin saw its price dip a little. You'd think that would hurt its position, right? Surprisingly, no. Bitcoin's dominance actually went up slightly, holding strong above 56%. Shows you the king still has some pull.
Interesting. Now, let's look at some of the other players. AI16Z is up almost 30%. Seems like that AI and blockchain combo is really heating up. And then there's Lido DAO. Doing well thanks to the whole Ethereum staking thing.
On the flip side, we've got Tokenize Xchange taking a hit, probably due to all those regulatory rumblings, and Virtual's protocol is cooling down after a pretty hot streak earlier this month.
It really is a roller coaster. But let's get to the big story. MicroStrategy and their never-ending love affair with Bitcoin. They just bought another huge chunk, right?
They did. Another 2,138 Bitcoin added to their stack, bringing the total to over 446,400. That's over $41.5 billion worth of Bitcoin, almost 13% of the entire crypto market cap.
Wow, that's a serious chunk of change. And their Bitcoin investment is up, orbiting 74% just this year. I mean, are they geniuses or are they playing with fire?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? But what's fascinating is that their strategy, at least for now, seems to be working. If you connect this back to Bitcoin's dominance, it makes you wonder if they're onto something. Are they seeing a bigger picture that most of us are missing?
It's definitely food for thought. Now let's talk about something that's been growing like crazy. Decentralized exchanges, or DEXs for short. They just hit a record $462 billion in trading volume this month.
That's right, and Uniswap is leading the pack, grabbing nearly a quarter of that volume. What's interesting here is that DEXs offer something different, more privacy, more control. And they're not controlled by any single entity.
So with all the regulations popping up globally, pink, it makes sense that people are looking for alternatives like DEX. But let's not forget the meme coins, Dogecoin, Shiba Inu, all that fun stuff. Looks like the party might be winding down a bit there.
Indeed. The meme coin market took a bit of a tumble this month, shedding around $40 billion in value. It's a good reminder that hype can only take you so far. Eventually, fundamentals come into play.
A lesson some learn the hard way, I guess. But while some things are cooling down, the regulatory landscape is definitely heating up. We've got MoonPay getting approved in the Netherlands. That sounds like a good thing, right?
It is. It shows that regulators are starting to figure out how to work with crypto, which is crucial for wider adoption. But on the other hand, you've got Malaysia cracking down on Bybit, ordering them to shut down operations. This is why compliance is becoming so important for crypto businesses. It's a constantly shifting landscape.
So navigating the regulatory maze is key. But even with all that going on, there's some really interesting developments popping up. We've got a legislator in Hong Kong proposing that they add Bitcoin to their national reserves.
Now, that's a bold move, even if it's just an idea at this point. It shows how attitudes towards Bitcoin are changing in unexpected places. And then there's El Salvador. Oh, doubling down on their Bitcoin strategy, despite what the rest of the world might think. They've now got 6,000 Bitcoin in their national piggy bank.
They're really going all in on this Bitcoin experiment. Talk about a gamble. Okay, before we move on, let's touch on the AI token scene. It's been a wild ride, hasn't it? Their market cap took a pretty big hit, down 28% from its peak.
Yeah, but I wouldn't write them off just yet. I think this is just a temporary dip. As AI and blockchain tech continue to merge, too, I predict we'll see these tokens make a comeback in 2025. It's a sector worth watching closely.
Interesting. So we've got established players like Bitcoin holding strong, DEX exploding in popularity, regulatory winds blowing hot and cold, and new frontiers like AI tokens waiting to be explored. It's a lot to take in, but that's why we're here, to help you make sense of it all.
It's certainly a thrilling time to be following the crypto space. So much happening all at once.
It is. and it can feel a little overwhelming trying to keep up with it all. So, let's take a step back and think about what this means for you, the listener. What are the key takeaways from all this data?
I think one of the biggest things is the rise of decentralized exchanges. The fact that they're hitting record volumes shows that people are really looking for more control over their assets and more privacy in their transactions. It's a move away from the centralized systems that have dominated finance for so long.
That makes sense. And with governments around the world tightening regulations, it's no surprise that people are seeking alternatives. It's like a digital version of the Wild West out there.
Exactly. And that brings us to the other side of the coin, regulation. The crackdown on certain exchanges, like what happened with Bybit in Malaysia, highlights how important it is to choose platforms that are playing by the rules. The crypto world is still young, and the rules are constantly evolving.
So it's a bit of a tightrope walk for these companies. They need to innovate and grow, but also stay on the right side of the law. It's a lot to juggle.
Absolutely. And for you, the listener, it means doing your homework. Understand the risks, choose platforms carefully, and stay informed about the regulatory landscape. Things can change quickly.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Now, earlier you mentioned that something in particular stood out to you in this report. What was it?
Well, honestly, it was that Hong Kong legislator proposing to add Bitcoin to their national reserves. It's such a radical idea, and it really got me thinking. Even if it doesn't go anywhere, the fact that it's being discussed at that level shows a major shift in how Bitcoin is being perceived.
It's a sign that maybe, just maybe, Bitcoin is starting to be seen as more than just a speculative asset.
Right. It could be a sign that some see it as a legitimate store of value, even on a national level. And then you've got El Salvador continuing their Bitcoin journey. Despite all the criticism, they're not just dipping their toes in the water anymore, they're diving headfirst.
It's a bold move, and it's certainly making people pay attention.
Absolutely. And for the rest of the world, it's like a real-time experiment. Will their bet on Bitcoin pay off? Or will it backfire? It's going to be fascinating to see how it unfolds.
Speaking of fascinating experiments, what about those AI tokens? They took a pretty big hit this month, but you seemed optimistic about their future. Why is that?
I think the potential of AI and blockchain technology coming together is just too big to ignore. We're still in the early stages. But imagine a world where we have decentralized AI applications that can solve complex problems, create new forms of art, even revolutionize industries like healthcare and education.
Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but I can see how the combination of AI and blockchain could be incredibly powerful.
Exactly. And while the recent dip in AI token value might seem discouraging, I believe it's just a temporary setback. As these technologies mature and become more intertwined, I think we'll see a resurgence in these tokens. It's a sector worth watching closely.
Definitely. Now, amidst all this excitement about new trends and emerging technologies, it's easy to forget about the old guard. Bitcoin and Ethereum. They're still the heavyweights in this space.
They are. And for good reason. They've proven their resilience and staying power over time. While it's important to keep an eye on the new kids on the block, it's also important to remember the fundamentals. Bitcoin and Ethereum have a strong track record and large active communities. They're not going anywhere anytime soon.
So, for someone trying to make sense of all this, what's the one key takeaway you'd want them to remember?
I'd say the most important thing is to stay curious and informed. The crypto world is constantly changing, and there's always something new to learn.
It can feel overwhelming. But don't be afraid to ask questions, do your own research, and approach it all with a healthy dose of skepticism and an open mind. It's a journey worth taking.
Exactly. And remember, this report we've been diving into only gives us a snapshot in time. It's a glimpse into a dynamic, evolving world. Who knows what the next year will bring? New technologies, new regulations, new challenges, new opportunities. It's all part of the ride.
And speaking of new developments, this report also mentioned the IRS's new DeFi broker rule, which seems to be causing quite a stir.
Yeah, the Uniswap CLO even called it a direct attack on decentralized finance. It's definitely a controversial development. That raises concerns about potential overreach by regulators and the possibility of stifling innovation.
It's a complex issue with far-reaching implications. We'll definitely need to keep a close eye on how this plays out in the coming months. It could have a major impact on the DeFi space.
Absolutely. This is a prime example of how the regulatory landscape is becoming increasingly complex and how crucial it is for crypto businesses and investors to stay informed and engaged in constructive dialogue with regulators. What happens with this rule could set a precedent for future regulation in the DeFi space.
It's a reminder that while the technology is moving at lightning speed, The legal and regulatory frameworks are still catching up. That creates a lot of uncertainty and potential for disruption.
Right. It's a constant balancing act between fostering innovation and protecting consumers. Finding that sweet spot is going to be key for the long-term health of the crypto ecosystem.
Okay, let's shift gears for a moment to something a bit lighter. The report also highlighted that Australia is continuing to dominate. In Bitcoin ATM installations, they've had 29 consecutive months of growth.
That's quite a streak. It seems the Aussies are really embracing crypto in a big way. Maybe it's the sunshine, maybe it's the laid-back attitude. But they're certainly showing a strong demand for accessible crypto infrastructure. You have to wonder what's driving that kind of growth.
It's a good reminder that crypto adoption is happening all over the world, in different ways and at different paces. What works in one country might not work in another. There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly, and that's what makes this whole space so fascinating. You have countries like El Salvador going all in on Bitcoin, while others are taking a more cautious approach, focusing on regulation and infrastructure. It's a global experiment playing out in real time.
And we're all witnessing it unfold. This deep dive has been a great way to get a sense of where things stand at the end of 2024. We've covered a lot of ground: market trends, key players, emerging technologies, regulatory hurdles, and even a glimpse into how different countries are approaching crypto adoption.
It's a lot to digest. But hopefully it gives you, the listener, a better understanding of the forces shaping the crypto landscape. And more importantly, it might spark some curiosity to explore further on your own.
That's what we hope for. This deep dive has only scratched the surface. There's a whole universe of information out there, waiting to be discovered. So, until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and as always, happy diving.